I think it would be fair to say that most of the members, and probably all of the members of the National Coalition, will be on one side doing everything they can, individually or as a total group, to strengthen this bill that would extend the present act 5 years. The administration has announced publicly, that's no secret, you've heard it by other speakers today, you've read it, the administration has announced that they're going to try to get greater flexibility in the present act, that the Secretary should have more authority to move in and out as he deems necessary. Well, that's the fight. A farm bill that says, let's take what we got for 5 years. And then there'll be a group of organizations that say it's not good enough. It never has been good enough. The only thing that saved it during these first 2 years and that made it come through last year in terms of net income was a corn blight. And then the worst drought in 100 years in Russia and the great sale that was made last summer. That's what saved the 1970 Farm Act. And you saw the figures that Rubin and Weldon had on the chart today on the screen in terms of the time bomb that can happen on production when you just cast it open and say, let her go. Well, that's the fight. One of the things that last Thursday I spoke at an agribusiness luncheon here in Omaha, and a reporter at that meeting who covers more meetings in Nebraska than I think any other reporter that I know of, told me that in his survey of farmers, 9 out of 10 farmers are for farm programs. 9 out of 10 farmers. 9 out of 10 farmers are not for just opening the gates and going it alone. And that's why I think we can win. I think we can win. Now let's talk about unity. It's a desirable goal, and we've a great deal of it. The massive cuts by the President have united rural America as I've never seen it united before in as short a period of time. I think we can put it together. There is hardly an interest in rural America that has not been touched. But I want to remind you all tonight that if you unite all of rural America, if you put it all together, you've still only got 5% of the people in this country. That's why we must be concerned about that unity, about that effort that has to go beyond agriculture, beyond the farm front. That's why we must be concerned about our friends in the cities, consumers, labor union members, independent business people, blacks, Indians, Chicanos, citizens all. Let's recognize the fact that total unity is seldom possible. Let's remember that there can be honest differences of opinion. Let's remember that our democracy is built on a two-party system, not a one-party system. So I don't buy everything, that of those that say the whole answer is we got to somehow have unity. Well, unity where? Unity within agriculture, yes, as much as we can possibly have. Work together where we can, but go it alone if you're right, and let the chips fall where they may. But unity with that 95%, that's the challenge. Let's see how many organizations will join the Farmers Union in taking a good view where organized labor is concerned and where our city people are concerned. That's the challenge. That's where the votes are. And that's why Farmers Union is going to take a look tomorrow evening in terms of just a consumers federation. And that's why Farmers Union is going to do everything it can in the nation's capital, in every large city, and I hope that the task forces will address themselves to it, is what do we do to get our friends in rural America the small businessmen, the educators, the teachers. How do we get all of the people that are concerned in the country to work together? That's the kind of unity we've got to have, a reorientation of our priorities. Where does America want to go? How can we help them, and how can they help us? And that's why I've asked Jim Patton to put together and to do some thinking and to share his findings with you on Wednesday afternoon. How do you work on this whole environmental issue? Because I tell you that very well, the die that may be cast in the years ahead will be done on that front, and there's the friends we need. There are the friends that we need. We must not underestimate the task ahead. We need 51 senators to pass legislation. You got to have 218 congressmen. You got to have 67 senators to override a veto, and you've got to have 291 congressmen to override it. But there's another side to that coin. You only need 34 senators, and you only need 146 congressmen to block legislation. And maybe we'll have to start putting together some effort to block legislation so that we can get some bargaining power, so that we can have something to trade to make sure we're not counted out. Maybe we'll have to work hard to block appropriations for the military. And then you start asking how many are going to join us on that. But I'll tell you, we'll be there, because the Farmers Union has a good position. We believe that President Eisenhower was right, as we indicated last evening in our profile of the Farmers Union, when President Eisenhower said that there was great concern. He had great concern about the military-industrial complex as he made his final statement when he left the presidency. And maybe we ought to start taking a look at some of those areas. If we can't override a veto, maybe we can go the other way. Now, we must think of other possibilities. Let me just ask you, if your congressman or one of your senators votes to uphold a presidential veto on an issue that is of vital concern to you as farmers, of vital concern to you, to your rural community, what will you do next? Will you try to defeat that congressman or senator the next time around? Well, let me just tell you, if you think that that's what you ought to do, you better tell him so now. That might change a few votes. You better let him know now that you're looking. If there's a vote, take a look at it and do something about it. Contact him. I must say to you that as I think of the challenges ahead, I'm anxious for action. We've got much to do, and it's so right. It's so necessary. Well, I've touched on many things here tonight, but I'd like to leave you with one personal thought. One of the great experiences you provide for me as your president is allowing me to represent you and to speak for you in the great forums of opinion in the world, and to the Congress and the Senate, and to leaders of countries all around the world. I'm especially proud because of what the organization means to great leaders of the world. I know that Jim Patton experienced that same thing in his time when he represented you and spoke for you. These people throughout the world know the long heritage of the Farmers Union. They know the fights that it has waged. They know much of the history that was presented here last evening of the fight for cooperatives, for minimum wages, for parity, and for justice. Those fights all came from the policy adopted in conventions like this. The fights came because you and those who came before you took the trouble to organize and to carry the banner for what they knew in their hearts to be right. They knew that it was the right, the just, and the moral thing to do. And they did what they had to do for the American dream. And as all of you know, we've had friends on our sides. Friends from other groups, friends of labor, friends from the city. I don't know of any organization that has a cross-section of friends that matches the Farmers Union. And I've said earlier, sometimes we've had many friends, and there's been a few fights where we've had damn few. But I've never felt lonely. I've never felt lonely because I've always felt that the fight was right and that it had to be made, and most important, the thing that was most important to me, because I had that feeling that you, through your policy, were behind me. I know you shared with me last night that great pride of that policy that was flashed on the screens. It's a policy that's good not just for farmers, but one thing that sets Farmers Union apart is that it's good for all people here in America and the rest of the world. And I know that the policy that you're going to adopt tomorrow and Wednesday will reach that high ideal. I pledge to you tonight that I'll work to implement it. You put it together, I'll do everything I can with it at the national front. The state presidents will do everything they can at the state front. The task force, multiplied among hundreds and hundreds of you, I hope will do everything they can to implement it. We're not going to take no for an answer. And I ask you here in this convention that you give me your pledge that you're going to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony Dechant. Thank you very much, Tony. Now you people know what we must do to get the job done.